السلام عليكم. إن شاء الله اليوم بنضيف لكم معلومات قيمة. في عندي بانلست الأخوة خبراتهم كبيرة جدا و I'm excited. صار لي 20 سنة بالمملكة العربية السعودية وشفت التغييرات الكثيرة الحمد لله الإيجابية بعد ما قضيت 20 سنة في أمريكا. ف20 سنة بأمريكا و20 سنة بالسعودية. After 20 years in Saudi Arabia, I've witnessed a lot of changes, and we know that the Kingdom Vision 2030 calls for digital transformation among diversification of the economy. So today we'll focus our discussion on the FinTech part or the digital financial part of the diversification of the economy. Let me first introduce my panelists. الأخ ماهر تفضل.
Maher Al Kaabi, the Group Head of Islamic Banking at Emirates NBD. You want me to give you more background on that? Okay, I look after the Islamic window we have at Emirates NBD, where we cover the region and wherever we have branches internationally as well, from the perspective of developing products, Islamic Sharia compliant products. Of course, our job is not only to develop products, and this is something we've been discussing. How do we make sure that it is relevant to the 21st century from Sharia perspective, and how do we make sure that we have digitization as embedded in our core value of getting anything done? And that's very important, because if we look at the 21st century, everybody is moving towards making everything on a platform where people can access things. And one of the things we probably behind at Islamic institutions overall, that we always tagged as followers. So we want to break through and make sure that we come up with systems that people from the conventional firms actually copy us. And that's something we're working upon, and we will be sharing it during the session as well.
شكرا أخ محمد.
Thank you very much. My name is Mohammed Al-Sahli. I'm the founder and CEO of FinTec Capital Markets, as well as other fintech initiatives such as Arabian Chain, Lucid Pay, and Palmex as well. So we are looking into basically with WeThac into the innovation, standardization, and automation in Islamic capital markets, focusing on the primary issuance of Sukuk products. And we are bringing that basically to not only to the digital era, but we are taking it a step further into the future. So that's what we are doing. So what we do is a lot of research behind our products as well, and we work with a lot of entities, such as institutions such as Clifford Chance, London Business School, all of these basically part of the ecosystem that we are playing around to bring something that is not only innovative but actually applicable in today's markets, and also with a vision to the future.
شكرا. Peter.
Thank you. Last but not least, my name is Peter. I am part of the founding management team at Beehive. Beehive is a UAE business, been in business about 4 or 5 years now. What we do is peer-to-peer lending with a Sharia wrapper. So we are audited by Islamic finance, and we also have an entire board in place as well. We're regulated by the DFSA. And we're also regulated by the Central Bank of Bahrain as well. Looking to launch here, hopefully soon as well. And we've funded around about $100 million to SMEs over the time we've been in progress.
So Beehive is basically a platform where investors can register, and also SMEs or startups can register there. So Beehive is a platform to manage both.
Correct. It's classic crowdfunding. So most people think of crowdfunding as equity, where basically you will put money into businesses and take an equity share in them. Where Beehive differs is it does the debt side of it instead. So basically what you're doing as an investor, you're putting your money in for a yield, and what we really are doing is giving investors the ability to get into a different asset class. There are some very, very large businesses doing exactly the same as we do around the world, but we're the only one doing it here in the Middle East.
Thank you. Brother Maher.
My son just registered on Friday on your behalf.
Fantastic, thank you.
I'm funding it.
Brother Maher, thank you very much for flying to the kingdom. There is no doubt of the progress, the distinguished progress actually that the UAE and specifically Dubai has made. And we would like to share some of that experience with us in regard to the fact that FinTech is expected to attract about $2 billion of investment. How could we manage that in the kingdom? Could you share your experience with us, please?
Sure. I think first of all we need to commend what the kingdom has done over the last 1 year as well. Relative to the previous era, the changes, the regulation has been done is quite substantial, it's quite a lot. Of course, we'll talk about that later on in a while, but let me just first share the UAE experience. There are certain things which are soft things, soft action we call them, and there are other actions which are very hardcore where we actually say the rubber meets the road. And basically there are no secrets. This is 101 of doing any transformation. Every company would go through these challenges. First of all, I think is to have a clear vision of what you want to do. Post having a vision, it's all about getting alignment. Many of the companies actually fail. One of the two reasons why a company fails is there's no alignment between the senior management, middle management, and lower management. The people who are actually going to be doing the work are the most important people you need to make sure you talk to make sure the alignment is there. I worked in a couple of ranks before. When alignment was not there, we could not even hit our strategy. We missed it by miles. And that was the important thing to talk about. So alignment is key things to make sure that you chant it every day. One of the Rockefeller approaches being said in the world today is how do you actually proclaim that you chant your alignment every day. So they follow an approach called three-stone approach. We can talk about that during the break, although I've seen quite a lot of people have gone after the lunch. We can discuss it later on, but that's a very simple thing you need to follow. Once you have alignment done, how do you make sure execution is done there? Now, one of the things that our leader, and we were actually very lucky to have leaders like that, they themselves will actually be there in making sure things happen. So it's not like, no, they have just set a vision and they have a team and the team will follow it. They will be the first people to follow. So if allow me to share with you that, even the Highness, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, who's the Prime Minister and the Vice President of the UAE, he would be the first person in visiting this department at 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning. And many of you probably heard stories where he visited various government department and he did not see the head of departments being there. And unfortunately, they had to lose their job or they had to let go. And because he said, it's an example. The motto he created, he said, when people are coming and visiting us, you're there to serve them. You're not there just to have a high salary and be behind your offices. So one of the things he's done even back when he was not even the Prime Minister and he was not even the ruler of Dubai, he was only the Crown Prince, and this was somewhere in 1995, he went to the police stations. A very simple example, he eradicated all the walls which were there, between the barriers between the visitors and the police officer who was behind the things. So these are the small things you need to do, at the very small things. There are more complicated stuff that we also need to do.
So let me ask Brother Muhammad a question that relates to yours, and then I'll come back to you after Peter. Brother Muhammad Sahli, you created the first Arabic blockchain in the world, Arabian chain. And I'm sure you're well aware that the Islamic finance industry has a lot of potential. Some have estimated it to be about $3.9 trillion. What do you think the kingdom should do to attract a lot of that money?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much for the question. It's basically a follow-up to whatever you were saying there. There are a lot of things that has to be done on a vision level, and then making sure that that vision actually aligns with the execution, and that is you are capable actually of delivering that. So there are micro steps you need to take, and then there are major steps sometimes you need to take as well to change. I believe one of the steps that I see recently adopted in the kingdom is basically the concept of starting and establishing the sandboxes, let's say. So that is one of the things that was lacking before, that does not allow a lot of people to start and establish such global businesses that attracts let's say, or targets the Islamic markets in general, and to have a footing here. So that's, to me as an entrepreneur, I think it's a significant step towards that. And then the shift in mentality that we're having, that we're not creating anymore, we're not creating companies anymore to be just local companies, that we're having having that vision to be global, to build something for not only for the region but for for the region and beyond. So that is something that when you have it as an aspiration and then you have the tools and capabilities and support to do so, that's where basically the rubber hits the road, as you said. So
how did you use this vision for your own private business?
yeah, so one of the things, for example, we established WeThank Capital Markets, and we approached one of these sandboxes. So now we are in the process of establishing one of the first regulated entities in the world that actually deals with capital markets on top of blockchain technology and utilizing the automation of smart contracts and self-executing contracts. So that kind of a product or that kind of a thought, it's happening from here, from the region. And we are doing something that is the first of a kind. So we're not followers anymore, and that's the beauty of this. Now we are doing certain things that are happening in this region. They are not developed in the States or in Europe, and then we import them here. We're actually building them and exporting them to out there. So that is the main benefit for us starting here, and we've received the welcome, and the ears to listen to our thoughts and ideas. And now we're going basically.
Of course, we hope that both regional governments and institutions, financial institutions, will support you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because only the government support will not take you there. So you need basically the buy-in from the financial institutions, from the investors, from the VCs in the region, to up their game as well. Yeah. So we have a lot of investors here. They're used to the traditional model of investment. It's like, they go to things like, real estate and stuff like that, but, thinking of things that are actually changing the future is where we need to be. So that is one of the things I learned as well, from being in Dubai for a while as well. The plan for the future foundation, the accelerators, and the government basically is the one who's pushing the private sector to go to the future. And that is the case hopefully happening in Saudi as well. The government is taking the lead to put the vision in and to push the private sector into investing in that future. And inshallah, that's what we'll see.
But the banks are still conservative.
Well, we'll see.
I think to follow on from that, I think people actually do need to realise that how much has changed in such a short space of time. I'm based in Dubai. I've lived there for 10 years. When I moved to Dubai, I was starting working with startups and so forth. There was very, very little infrastructure. That's changed dramatically over the time. I've been working in Saudi, trying to launch Beehive in Saudi for the last 4 years. Okay? I know how much things have moved here, particularly in the last year, 2 years. It's phenomenal the change that's happening, and I think all of this is going to take time to move on. But I think you'll find that in the UAE and here as well, that change is happening. It's happening at accelerated speed, and I think because of that, there's a lot of questions. People saying, why are things not happening as fast as they are? They are happening at breakneck speed. I think it really is important how much is going on here. And the point you asked about on the bank side of the thing, I think that what you need is, I think basically reflects on both the comments actually made earlier really. One, it needs very much C-suite buy-in and a real push down from that buy-in. But it needs to have a C-suite buy-in, which then the next level down cannot basically be a blocker. And that's the thing we find sometimes is you work at the C-suite, they want to do something, but the people below it are not empowered to do it. It's really important that they are. And I think that in itself would open up so much, but it's push from top level.
Yep. Peter, I'm going to ask you a quick question, then I'll throw a question to all three of you. I'm a blockchain guy. I claim to have built the first blockchain solution provider in Saudi Arabia, and we closed some serious projects that hit the international market, alhamdulillah, and the company got acquired or merged with another big company in this business. What do you think blockchain, AI, robotics, all these fancy new technologies have to play in this game?
Yes, certainly. So my general view is that all of them, I think everyone basically the same opinion, that these will be very, very significant technologies, and they're going to force a massive shift change. There are still, though, relatively few proper use cases of all of them. AI in particular, that's built off data, significant volumes of data, but data that is clean and available. And I think AI in itself is being incorrectly used generally when it's being sold into banks in particular. Blockchain, Mohammed's down to a bit of a position than I am to talk about blockchain. But my general view here is that it's a phrase which people are using without really understanding what is behind it. But I think everyone realises that ultimately there is a huge amount of power behind it when it actually gets used properly.
If I may add to that as well, see, any innovation need to be done. There are the three key drivers are, which is automation, which the entire world is talking about, nothing new. This decentralization, also relatively not new. It's there as a concept from before and people have been doing it. And disintermediation, that is relatively new. We're just basically, in a very jargon way, if I say, how do I throw the banks out so these fintech companies actually can go and reach the customers? Basically, the overarching umbrella, we talk about inclusivity. You know, there's a research, there are 2 billion people today, currently, they're unbanked. And in the last 2 years, because of the fintech companies, there are more than over 12,000 fintech companies out there since 2010. They have actually managed to get 800 million people actually doing some sort of banking transaction.
But Brother Maher, it's not because those fintechs, they want to throw away the banks. I doubt it. It's because the banks, we all love banks, we trust them because they're heavily regulated, we know our money is supposed to be safe there, but it's because they have failed to do a certain task, which is reaching those people in the rural areas, those unbanked, correct?
I completely agree with you. I think the challenge of the banking system it's all about, it's mentioned, I echo what has been mentioned in the previous sessions, it's all about risk-taking, but it's all about managing risk. So those people who are unbanked, for them, they were not really in the target market to really talk about them. And that's why these fintech companies found solutions of actually approaching these individuals or unbanked people to make them part of the whole thing. And
So Brother Muhammad Sahli, how could, instead of having the rivals, fintechs competing with banks, when they really shouldn't be? What should?
No, actually, you know, my view, you know, on this is fintech is basically a catalyst for banks to move on and to innovate. I used to joke about this before, you know, telling that, you know, we are not here to help banks, you know, we are here to eliminate banks and take over. But you know, as it's a joke, but as well there is some truth behind it as well. You know, that means, you know, the banks that are not changing and adopting and not moving, you know, towards the future, then they will just lose. Yeah, absolutely, and that is basically the rule number one in innovation. You have to stay relevant to the markets. You have to stay relevant to your clients and customers, and be aware of the, you know, the shifts that are happening around you. So. If you don't stay relevant, then you're just going to lose. So what I'm saying is here, you know, fintechs, since, you know, they are more agile, more flexible, and you know, and that is part of where the banks sometimes, you know, lack that kind of, you know, let's say flexibility in the project. So there is, you know, this is a collaboration area that happens, and I see it as a natural fit between, you know, the banks who are looking to innovate and to move forward, and these you know, startups or fintechs that are looking to create something in the future. So there is some sort of a collaboration there. It's going to happen, and the banks who are actually doing that collaboration and not seeing them as threat or not seeing them as competition, is the banks are going to survive to the future. So that is the thing, is, you know, it's about collaboration, and you know, the ones who don't collaborate and just stay in the back and trying to work in a closed box, they're just going to lose.
Correct. So yeah, Peter.
Although I do, being very honest, I see very, very few banks collaborating. Where banks are doing things, they're potentially doing internally. I know they're definitely talking to people, but I see very little real, true collaboration at this point in time.
Now, I've been through that. I've been on that road, as they say. Possibly we are to be blamed. We, meaning, because I consider myself a fintech guy or startup guy, we are to be blamed. When I go to the bank, a bank is well established, heavily regulated. I go there with lack of knowledge. I think that a bank could make a decision to change his core system right away. This is not true. If I do my homework as a fintech properly, then I think they would collaborate. And I'm talking from experience. In the kingdom, I started a company back in 2016 to do blockchain solutions. We did not go to the core banking. We pitched to banks, and we knew what banks to target, the ones that the decision-making cycle is shorter. We went to Al Jazeera Bank, for example, and we knew what to pitch to them. Basically, the major pain area is the customer-facing area, which is their mobile app or their website app. If you could add value by enhancing that, they're not done. They're very smart. They will know their return on that small investment they make in you. They will take you under their umbrella. They will support you.
I think we can hear from the banker.
Well, Citibank has made a research and they said 30% of the banking jobs will go away. So just to give you some relaxation, another research says 50% of the current jobs in the banking will go away. So 2 out of 1 will not be there. So might be some good news for the people who are not bankers, right? Capgemini actually did a research and they said less than 3% of banks actually have adopted any digitization strategy. And I'm a believer that banks either would merge to remain banks or they will die away. And I think banks will die away naturally. We all remember how Kodak and Nokia has died away because they did not really adopt to the new technology. So this is a new human tendency. People do not recognize the fact and the threats in front of them. We have a slogan in the bank that says, either you digitize or you die. That's why we pledged $1 billion dirham, which is equivalent to $1 billion Saudi riyal for 5 years, just to digitize the whole thing. So we have created a digital lab in the bank where we support entrepreneurs, we bring them over, we look at their ideas, we collaborate with governments, the various accelerator programs, we collaborate with them and make sure that we come up with new things. And that's what we're doing. One of the things we have done is we have created kind of a digital bank within the bank we are in, whereby people can get into the bank online and the phone and open an account without even visiting the bank, without anybody visiting you and actually validating that whether it was you or not. And that was only a simple account thing.
This is the right approach. This is what I was pitching to banks that I tried to sell solutions to. Do not disrupt your business, your core business. Leave it alone. You could start a parallel, like you did, a parallel system, starting from the grounds up, all digital.
Yeah. And mind you, in just 2018, and not the entire 2018, we have booked more business in terms of account than the traditional bank itself. It became so rapidly used. It was a bank for, actually the idea behind that, it was bank for millennials. Because millennials have a different mindset and different way of thinking it, and they're very, I would say, agile and understanding of the new smartphone things, the new technology. That's why the idea came from there. And even the people who are manning this department were all millennials.
Is it only end users like I who use digital banking or also small businesses?
At this point of time, it was a test bit for us. So we started for individual customers. And once we have the full suite of offering over there, like one of the things we're working on now, how do we offer credit card without you even visiting the bank, without even you providing anything. So that's something we're working on as we speak, and it's going to be launched soon. And the same services we have over there, we're working in the Kingdom over here to bring those services in the Emirates Embassy here as well.
Now we know, Peter, Beehive, they are providing a platform to fund for investors to spend their money funding startups, but also Brother Muhammad Sehli has a solution where it does the payment, facilitates the payment, it facilitates the settlement. So could you both gentlemen comment on that?
So one of the other things that we do basically is a company called Lucid Pay, and the focus there is basically on payments and settlements. And we started with a very interesting client in the UAE, in Dubai. So we started with Atlantis Jumeirah. I think most of you probably heard of it. And we started working with them for about 6 months for free, nothing. We just showing them that this technology works, as we are using the latest blockchain technology for settlements and payments, and we wanted to do something in production. We didn't want to do a POC. We wanted something to actually shift their basically transaction forwards. And what happens is usually, within a certain big entity, you have a lot of restaurants and shops, and all of these, they use Visa and MasterCards for payments within. So with each of these transactions, you're paying about 2.5% on these transactions, and then they do basically reconciliation, end of day, end of month, end of week, end of quarter, whatever it is. That is costing them a lot of money, and especially all of these entities actually belong to the same entity, which is Atlantis. So they decided, okay, you know what, we will allow them to get rid of Visa and MasterCard internally. They will be using our basically tokens that are pegged to the UAE dirham within their accounts. That is only in a controlled environment. And then we integrated basically with their point of sale devices, and then created, the e-wallets for that. So you probably heard of a lot of initiatives for e-wallets are happening here in the region. But I guarantee that none of them is using blockchain to guarantee that actually these wallets are safe.
So you created a new card or the same hotel card?
So what we did is we used the phone as a virtual card, and then we used the hotel cards as well for payments inside of the hotel. You can use the hotel card basically for paying in the restaurants around and all of that.
So I can open my hotel room?
Yes, you can
Plus
open your hotel room,
the
plus use it for payment. So yeah, but that requires a specific type of cards that has a chip in, so not the magnetized one. If you don't have it, then we simply use either a bracelet or you use basically your phone to do those payments. So that is basically right now fully integrated and operational there. If you ever visit Atlantis, just look at the receipt and you will find Lucid Pay there. So.
MashaAllah. I'm a firm believer in digitization, and in all my tweets, I'm against those who say that digitization will increase employment. It will get rid of a lot of jobs or make a lot of people unemployed. That is untrue. The civilization, when it happened, yes, maybe it got rid of manual farming, but it created a lot of new jobs that require a new skill set. Brother Peter there, he is helping digitize by supporting startups, even though not all his startups are in the FinTech or in the digital space. But since we are focusing on FinTech, how do you see Hive and other similar companies in this ecospace helping reduce unemployment and help drive the economy?
Certainly, thank you. So I think this goes back to one of the bits we were discussing earlier, is getting money basically to businesses or people who currently can't get the money. So if you look at what Beehive does in particular, we're giving money to SMEs. Now, SMEs, as everyone knows, are the lifeblood of any economy. Banks have traditionally, particularly in this region, to be honest, internationally, have had a problem economically lending to SMEs because they find it economically difficult to risk assess, maintain as a client, decide whether or not they should be basically a good business to bank with. We are purely monoline. All we do is focus on getting debt finance to SMEs. Now there are a number of different channels of that debt, so it could be term debt, it could be working capital, it could be merchant cash advances, but ultimately that is what we live and die by. And I think when you purely focus on one thing and one thing alone, you can make it very, very good. And you're forced to make it very efficient as well. So because our DNA is built around the whole concept that what we're trying to do is make finance to SMEs cheaper, quicker, and more accessible, that is what we design everything for. And that's what the entire management and the entire team is focused on. So what FinTechs in particular start, and I am focusing purely on FinTechs here because that's what we're talking about, when you look at FinTech has a particular niche area that it's really trying to focus on, that's when it can do it really, really well, because ultimately all of its energy is focused on that. And I think the same is true, for example, if it's a business trying to purely focus on getting money to the low-wage people. Yeah? Again, that's what its focus is. If its focus is purely that, it can do it much better. And a bank will never have that sort of focus because that isn't what the bank's there for. The bank's going to make a lot more money out of much larger corporate transactions.
So by helping or supporting or funding those small companies, you are actually helping them sustain the business, stay in business, therefore they will be hiring more people.
Totally. Yeah. You can see the throughput of businesses that we've helped and how they extend. I mean, Beehive itself is an SME. Yeah? We started kind of 4.5 years ago. We started with 3 people. We're now 50. Yeah? We ourselves are a classic example of a startup that's gone through that tradition.
Brother Muhammad Sahli, you automated several functions for Atlantis. You got rid of manual stuff. You helped them increase their bottom line by reducing the fees they pay externally outside the Emirates, correct? Because that's money that would go to MasterCard and Visa and other people. That money goes outside. You benefited financially, but I'm sure you also increase your team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is basically part of what we're doing, and what we have is the umbrella, let's say, as Arabian chain, basically, the one overlooking all of these. And this initiative starts under Arabian chain as an idea at the beginning, and then this idea develops and becomes its own company. So now Lucid Pay is a standalone company with its team and management and all of that. As WeThack is the same, it's a standalone company with all its team and all of that. So it's kind of, we're thinking of the Arabian chain umbrella as an innovation hub, an innovation house. We sit down, we come up with these ideas. They're not too crazy. They're innovative and they're applicable for today's market with a futuristic vision. So that is the recipe I
And
see.
these companies are made by people of the region.
Yes.
So they understand the economics and the social needs and implications.
Absolutely. Everything we do basically within the region and in-house, and that's the beauty of it. So, talking about people from Saudi, the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, so it's like, we have, teams of people working around, and of course we have people as well, from all around the world. But that is the beauty of it, that we start from here and then we deliver here first and then we take it global. So it's a good start.
Thank you. So I'll ask the last question to Brother Maher, because he's not from Saudi. We are from Saudi Arabia. You're originally Saudi. Brother Maher, is the bank doing all the work by Emiratis? Is Dubai benefiting only from Emiratis, or how you handling the nationalization of jobs, of helping the nationals to grow and advance, and how are you dealing with foreigners? I have to ask that question because I'm a foreigner, of course, and I'm proud of being in the kingdom for 20 years. Go ahead.
There's a huge nationalization drive within UAE, and that tops the agenda of UAE. Having said that, we also have, as part of the agenda, is inclusivity, as we speak in the FinTech industry and any other things as well. Inclusivity means, how do I embrace people from other nationalities and they actually be part of the success that UAE is building upon. We know that we cannot build a nation with ourselves alone. We have to have partners. We need to partner with everybody who's around us, and not only the people who are there, but also bring in people and companies from abroad, because it's all about collaboration. I go back always, and I also chair a board of directors of a school as well, and I always tell them as well, for you to be a successful school, you ought to have different children from different nationalities, because that increases your competitiveness. You ought to have teachers from different backgrounds that ought to increase your competitiveness. Sure. Same thing, take it at a bigger scale on an economy. You have to have, look at the economy of US. Why is it flourished? For many reasons. There are many reasons over there, but they also flourish because they have embraced many people from different parts of the world. And this is what UAE is proud of. It's like, we embrace anybody there because we recognize without their help, we will not be reaching.
Thank you very much. I would like to open the floor for questions. Peter, you want to ask a question? Thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you very much, my panelists.
Thank you.